Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Bhutan, want to explain about the effect of the pandemic economic development in order to fulfill the text of the Bisnis English course 2, MM4. Before that, allow me to introduce ourselves first.
My name is Dimas Ardiansyah.
My name is Hidin Nuraisha Tugas.
My name is Emi Shandi Al-Farisi.
My name is Fadila Nur Azizah.
My name is Gali Ramadan.
We want to explain about the effect of the pandemic on economic development in order to fulfill the text of the Business English Course 2, RM4.
Economic condition before COVID-19. The impact of the COVID-19 pandemic is felt by all walks of life. The order of life has changed drastically, starting with workers working from home, students studying from home, even to the closure of manufacturers and other sectors. The world and national economies in the first quarter of 2020 were still not significantly affected, but in the second quarter and beyond it could be said that they were in free fall and even experienced a recession. This condition was the worst period since 1999 for Indonesia. The decline in the national economy in the second quarter of 2020 was the impact of the large-scale social restriction or PSBB policies in various cities in Indonesia, starting in early April 2020. The most affected national economic sector based on Bank Indonesia 2020 data are the tourist sector and its derivatives, the transportation sector, the automotive sector, the manufacturing sector, the construction and real estate sector, the oil and gas sector, and the financial sector. However, there are also economic sectors during the COVID-19 pandemic that have benefited, namely the information and communication sector, financial services, agriculture, real estate, educational services, health services, and water supply. The drastic reduction in community activity significantly affect the rate of economic growth. This condition is especially felt on the island of Java as the island with the largest population in Indonesia. The island of Java was territory consists of 6 provinces, namely Banten, the special capital region of Jakarta, West Java, Central Java, East Java, and the special region of Yogyakarta. During this COVID-19 pandemic, most cities on the island of Java imposed PSBB policies, both on a micro scale and in the certain regional zones. It is these provinces on the island of Java that play a dominant role in supporting the rate of economic growth in Indonesia.
In the next discussion, I will explain about economic condition after COVID-19. In 2020 stands as a landmark year as the COVID-19 pandemic severely impacted the life of many Indonesians, in particular vulnerable communities. In Indonesia, data from the census in March 2019 show 25 million people were living under the poverty line. 9.4% of populations, a further 55 million people or 20.6% of the populations live slightly above the poverty line, which indicates that they are vulnerable to becoming poor. Thus, it is possible that now, due to the pandemic, up to 30% of the country's populations are living in poverty. With an increased number of people living under the poverty line, there is a strong need to accelerate studies and lessons learned on the economic impact of COVID-19 on vulnerable groups and children so that multisectoral policies and programs may be developed to counter these effects. The impact of COVID-19 on employment, microbusiness, food security, access to health educational services, and access to social protection programs on the deeper levels, it provides insight into the impact of the pandemic on children's development and well-being. Java is one of the islands in Indonesia with a very large contributions to the economy, more than 57%. This has big impact on the economic prospect and communities activities. All local government officials on the islands of Java must be able to go the extra mile to ensure that all communities comply with and implement the health protocols that have been designed by the government, because if the COVID-19 cases on the islands of Java continue to soar, it will have an impact on economic slowdown that will last longer. If cities in Java continue to struggle and fail to reduce the number of COVID-19 transmissions, it will very clear sign that the national economy is facing a very serious problem, so that our project economic growth in the second quarter will grow minus 4.3%.
Government policy. The government has issued an economic policy to overcome the problems caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, namely the issuance of regulation in lieu of Law Number 1 of 2020 has become Law Number 2 of 2020 concerning state financial policy and financial system stability for handling the COVID-19 pandemic and or in facing threats that endanger the national economy and or financial system stability. Government Regulation Number 23 of 2020 concerning implementation national economic recovery program in order to support state financial policy for handling pandemic COVID-19 and or facing threats that endanger the national economy and or financial system stability and save the national economy. And OJK Regulation Number 11 POJK 3 2020 concerning economic stimulus national as a counter-cyclical policy impact of the spread of coronavirus disease. Various policies to save the economic sector were immediately issued, although they still prioritize the health sector. These policies are such as social assistance for affected communities, micro or regional scale PSBB, and optimization of the government spending sector. The government can increase its contribution to other sectors that still have the potential to increase and are not vulnerable to global economic shock. During this COVID-19 pandemic, most cities on the island of Java imposed PSBB policy, both on a macro scale and in certain regional zones.
Conclusion. The COVID-19 pandemic has greatly impacted various sectors of life, especially the economic sector. Not only the international world is experiencing a recession, Indonesia is also experiencing a recession. The island of Java as the highest contribution to the economy in Indonesia is greatly affected by this pandemic. Various economic sectors in Java experience a slowly down, even contract quite deeply. Banten province is the province on the island of Java with the deepest contraction, and the special region of Yogyakarta province is the province with the fast recovery in the post-pandemic economic recovery period. But even took there, the slowly down and even minus in several other economic sectors were positively affected, such as the information and communication sector, agriculture, forestry, and fisheries. In order to accelerate economic recovery during the pandemic period in Indonesia, It must start from the island of Java. This is because the island of Java is the highest contributor to the national economy through the policy of revitalizing the processing industry. It can increase the enthusiasm of investors. In addition, it can also be through the policy of easy access and capital for small and micro-medium enterprises (MSMEs). This is because during a pandemic the strength of MSMEs can be said to have quite good opportunities compared to other economic sectors, and the policy of optimizing the use of village fund as an alternative to development innovation. This is because the village is the return destination for urban needs affected by the pandemic in capital. In order for the economic in the village to increase, the use of village fund must be properly functioned, such as for labor-intensive development, innovation development of village-owned enterprise, BAMDE, or for optimizing the development of tourist village potential. The COVID-19 pandemic that has hit the world has changed the order of various aspects of life, and Indonesia is no exception. Starting from the health, social, and economic sector that are most significantly affected. The economic sector experienced a recession both at the global and national levels. To accelerate economic recovery in Indonesia, it must start from Java because as the large contributor, namely with government policy effort in revitalizing the processing industry, increase access and capital for MSMEs, and optimizing the use of village fund in alternative development innovation during a pandemic with labor-intensive development, BAMDE development or development of tourist village potential.
Proportion or over. To accelerate treatment and prevent the transmission, the government must implement an all-cost policy such as the procurement of medical equipment, supporting examination, isolation room, and personal protective equipment, eliminating the cost of examination whether proven or not, or other method processing, such as distributing cheap masks and so on. The maintain popular purchasing power as a result of the slowdown in the economic cycle. The government is required to reduce costs that are directly under the government control, including basic tariff for electric fuel and clean water. The reduction in electricity and fuel tariff will threaten not burden the financial of CEOs and regional-owned enterprises, considering that the price of crude oil, which fell the range of $20 per barrel, is expected to continue for a long time in line with the potential for a global recession. The government policy to relate the income tax of both manufacturing industry workers, obligation of PPA 21 for 6 months, or corporate tax for the manufacturing industry exception of import PPA 22 and a 30 discount of PPA 25 shall be expanded. The reason is that the current economic slowdown is not only fault with manufacturing industry sector but also other sectors. Therefore, the government needs to carry out tax reductions such as providing tax break, acceleration the payment of registration, and delaying the payment of tax installment of other sectors, especially the most severely affected, such as the transportation and tourism sector. The government effort to maintain the purchasing power of the poor by providing direct cash assistance to people who experience a decrease in income as apparent layoff needs to be supported by policy, the ensures the smooth supply and distribution of goods, especially food. Ultimately, the potential for panic buying and hoarding is how so security in the distribution aspect need to be fixed in situations like this, as in China, the military can be optimized in assisting the handling of victims and preventing their expansion, including assisting the process of securing the supply and distribution of goods. Furthermore, the distribution of direct cash assistance also needs to be followed by accurate data collection on receipt of assistance, as well as improvement of mechanisms and institution is distribution so that funds are not mistargeted and achieved by all people who sought to active them. Is learned from the experience of distribution social assistance so far that has not been evenly distributed, especially for people who really need it. Therefore, coordination of the validity of the data the subdirectory level need to be carried out both at the central level and at the regional level, so that the goal of this assistance program is to maintain people purchasing power. The Financial Services Authority must establish policies that encourage financial institutions to reschedule and refinance private sector debits, as well as for businesses that face high market exchange rate risks. In addition, Bank Indonesia and the Financial Services Authority need to formulate policies that are strategic in nature to overcome the high banking interest rate, which is one of the basis of economic actors, especially in the midst of the current economic slowdown. And lastly, the government can open up opportunities to make new policy breakthroughs in the fiscal sector. The option of widening the budget deficit beyond the limited stipulated by the state finance law is needed amidst the increasing need for state spending to provide incentive for the economy. From the monetary side, it is unnecessary to follow the example of the monetary authorities of several countries that are actively involved in providing incentives, especially when the benchmark interest rate policy and various conventional policies are not running optimally as they are today.